Hey everyone, it's Swank Ivy with another Letters to an Asexual. This is number 130, and I hope everyone had a good Ace week. If you celebrate, I didn't really do anything. I did accept an interview request, but just one, on Asexuality 201 with the lovely Joanne. So I will link that in my video description if you want to go listen to it. It was an audio interview, so it's always nice to talk to someone about slightly more advanced ACE topics. But we do that here as well, so usually in the form of reading a letter. So today's topic is going to be primarily about people who externally decide about your relationship that it can't last if it doesn't involve sex. So I'm sure we've all heard this before. If those of you out there who are in relationships, romantic relationships primarily, but any kind of relationships, it seems like a lot of times people who look at us from outside always say those relationships just can't last. And this, oddly enough, will apply even if it's an ace-ace relationship. They'll still say, yeah, I just don't think it'll last. Very peculiar thing to be saying considering how many relationships do involve sex and also don't last, but I digress. So I would like to read you, this is not so much a letter as it is kind of my reflection on some comments that were left on a HuffPost article. Maybe it was a video. I think that maybe I was watching an asexuality-related Huffington Post feature, and even though the feature itself was actually pretty good, the comments were predictably pretty bad. And the one that I'm focusing on for this video is people who just think that asexual relationships can't last if they don't involve sex. I can understand a little bit more if they don't really understand how they can work if one person wants sex and the other doesn't. But I'll discuss that in the actual content here. So this is what I had posted reflecting on the HuffPost Live feature, as it turns out it was. Okay, so this was my write-up. I said, overall, it was really great. Everyone who was on the program interacted well with the very respectful and curious host as they discussed love without sex, which really should have been called asexual relationships because they do sometimes involve sex, and not all relationships involve love necessarily, which they covered. But I was really pleased with it. What I was not pleased with were, of course, some of the comments. And that's one thing I just want to throw out there. One commenter said this: "How can you have a healthy marriage without sex?" Another commenter said this: "I feel as though if you're with someone for a long time and you both never engage in sex, the relationship won't last." I know these kinds of questions aren't new to you guys, but I was just thinking about how much it annoys me that people feel like they get to judge what has to go on in a healthy relationship. They get to define healthy based on the amount of sex, no matter what they know about the partners involved, which is usually nothing, except that one or more of them might not be sexually attracted to anyone. They get to tap these people on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, sex is important in all relationships, so sorry to inform you that your relationship is doomed." They get to decide that no matter what the people involved need or want, sex is an essential part of marriage or relationships. That it is the cornerstone, the foundation, the one vital ingredient. My answer to these kinds of questions is very, very, very simple. It's true that relationships cannot exist happily over time without all the partner's most important needs being met. Many people can't conceive of sexual satisfaction not being some people's most important needs. They'll say they can't imagine it. They'll point to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They'll yell, "But biology!" But they'll feel that relationships existing without this element violate the laws of nature and somehow threaten their relationships if they dare to claim mutual satisfaction without it. So what they're saying is that they can't separate sexual satisfaction from all vital needs in their minds. It's really very easy to accept the idea once you back away slowly and realize that not everyone, not even every non-asexual person, considers lack of sex a deal breaker. I promise, people who are saying things like this, you do not have to give up sex or consider it not essential to your life just because you admit not everyone needs it to be complete. You can trust the partners involved in these relationships to speak for their own needs. You don't get to decide what is and what should be essential in their relationships. The real comments should have been, but how can you have a healthy marriage without the partner's vital needs being met? And I feel that the relationship can't last if the partners don't respect and satisfy each other's needs. If they'd made those comments, they'd have a point. As is, they don't. Because these commenters and the world at large do not get to decide that sex must be valued by everyone, or that sex somehow defines a healthy relationship or guarantees it. We certainly know that plenty of sexually active relationships dissolve for an infinite number of reasons, so clearly sex is not some kind of relationship glue that is one of a kind. That glue is much more likely to stick if it's made out of respect. So I had posted that on my Tumblr back in the day, and someone else reflected on it and said this entire post is fantastic. Thank you. And it's exactly what I've been thinking about lately, but said so much more eloquently. And the person quoted me saying, they get to decide that no matter what the people involved need or want, sex is an essential part of marriage or relationships, that it is the cornerstone, the foundation, the one vital ingredient. And this is the idea that has messed me up. The idea that has made me feel so guilty for loving my partner. It's the idea that has made me feel inadequate and contributed to my suicidal ideation and has just made me so terribly unhappy. I just wish I hadn't internalized this notion." End quote. I replied to them, I wish asexual people weren't encouraged to internalize stuff like this too. I think it's statements like yours and the hundreds of similar notions I've heard from others that really make me angry when people who know nothing about us say, "Excuse me, but how dare you say it's hard to be asexual? How exactly are you oppressed?" Usually we'll bring up how isolating it is to be the only asexual you know, presumably before you find out there are others, though even after finding the community, we're often alone in our IRL social circles. And how much it stands in the way of feeling like you have a right to want happiness, especially in a relationship. But people tend to sneer at us and say they've never heard of anyone actually really suffering because of asexuality, and we're just a bunch of attention-hungry clowns who want to jump on the queer train because it's so cool there. A bit ironic, I think, for them to not realize that we're so erased, even our erasure is erased. So that's the end of that. As usual, I welcome your reflections in my comments. If you have ever had an ace-ace relationship, if you've ever had a relationship where you're the ace person in a mixed orientation relationship, if you've ever been the non-ace partner and you've been in a relationship with an ace person, I'm interested in hearing from all perspectives on this issue. I feel like relationships, even pretty straightforward kind of like cis-het relationships that are by most standards of society the norm, so to speak, even those ones have their own quirks. They develop their own sort of microculture of two people. They do certain things differently than most people, and maybe they don't even need to talk about it because they're satisfied with each other. They have their understandings. They have their things that are peculiar to only their relationship, and they're happy with it. And it's just that because they're straight and they don't feel like weird about it, they don't feel like maybe one of them that is exploiting a power dynamic to feel like they're entitled to demanding something from the other that that person does not want to give. I feel like because a lot of people in that situation they feel empowered to be able to do whatever they want in their relationship, that we don't have a lot of understanding of the huge variety of norms, of things that are different across relationships, how weird people are, how diverse they are. And it doesn't just apply to those of us who have sexual orientations outside of the most common ones. So I think that if we talked about our relationships in, more context, if we talked about them and freely shared them more, that we would really start to get a better picture of just how weird everybody is. But I feel like these people in HuffPost comments, they're getting their ideas of what is normal from media, from television, from movies, from teen magazines, from what a bunch of judgy people say to each other in high school. And then they move forward with these things that end up really damaging other people, making them feel like they're not worthy of a relationship, making them feel from outside their relationship that they're not okay inside their relationship. The people that matter in a relationship are the people in that relationship. And it is up to those people to figure out what is the dynamic that they want to cultivate between themselves. And external interference in those relationships is only appropriate if something abusive is happening and the person needs out or needs help or needs perspective of like what's going on if they're not happy in the relationship. But if between the relationship participants they're happy with what they have, nobody needs to be charging in from outside and saying, sorry, but I have bad news for you. If you don't have this and this and this, then that's not a functional relationship. You need to wake up and understand that like this isn't normal and therefore you can't have it. You're messed up. You need to realize that. Just how many more satisfying relationships we could have in this world if people would just mind their damn business. So that's my message. And while I tell you to mind your damn business, I also am paradoxically asking people to share their perspective if they want to share it of what goes on in their relationships. So basically, I feel like we can talk about it, but refrain from judging it. And I think we'd all be a lot happier if that was the norm in how we form relationships and how we discuss them. So, all right, that's enough from me for this one. And yeah, see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.